Welcome, everybody. This is John with the Toxic Man. Welcome to the Toxic Man podcast. This is episode number 13. This podcast is brought to you by Toxic Masculinity Whiskey, where their motto is tasteful, smooth, and unapologetically strong, like you. The whiskey will be out for sale here in a couple of weeks. Last time I talked to the guys, they were actually getting it barreled up and ready, and I will let you know when it's ready for purchase. Really excited about that. These are good guys, and they don't like what the left is trying to do to masculinity. They are very much against it, and I ask that you give them a shout out or give them a try, because I'm sure this can be a rye whiskey, something smooth just to sit back and enjoy with your buddies, to talk about stuff guys talk about. Today I'm actually the topic, it might actually be a controversial one because some people tend to protect this, and I don't know why, but it's going to be actually about the dangers of pornography and what it does to men. I'm sitting here with Michael from @man_under_construction, and there's an underscore after man and under, so man_under_construction. How you doing, Michael?
Hey, brother, I'm doing good. I'm honored to be here, and I'm excited about what the conversation is going to be like.
I'm too. I think this is going to be something that I think when this is posted, there's going to be people who, I've noticed on your page some, when you've talked about the dangers of pornography, some people almost defend it.
Some people get offended?
Defend it.
Oh, defend pornography. Oh, I'm sorry. You cut out a little bit and I didn't understand. Yeah, because it usually people that defend stuff don't want to get rid of stuff. They make excuses for it, like, oh, it's not really damaging, or it's not really doing this. It's not doing anything. But it's usually because they don't want to get rid of it and they defend it.
Mm-hmm.
But the dangers of it are known, and I've experienced the dangers of it firsthand myself.
And is that kind of what brought your Instagram to light, to kind of why you created it, was because of your dealings with pornography? Give us a little background about kind of what led to Man Under Construction and what it means to you, and what kind of, I guess almost like a service that you can do for other men that may be trapped in that.
Well, it's only been around for like 10 months. Last year, I had been tied to pornography for a very long time, and I had for a couple of years I've been clean, like completely clean, like 3-4 years. But I had almost by sheer will, like, forced myself not to engage with that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so the kind of the tentacles of it, and what the habits that I created back then were still kind of entrenched in my mentality. Like, I took that away, but I didn't fill it up with something good or constructive. So a lot of time my mind would go back and bounce off to that.
Okay.
And it got to the point, I got divorced several years ago, and my pornography addiction, of course, was a contributing factor to that. And I don't want to go too much into detail unless we go into it later on the show. But I was on track to destroying my second marriage, and not because I was engaging in porn, but because of my behaviors that didn't really change. Like the core of myself deep inside, it hadn't changed. So I was still, somewhat flirtatious, and I really didn't see anything wrong with it at that time. And I was still, I didn't see anything wrong, because at that time I was going to school, and at that time I would message other females from school, and I didn't see the potential danger in that. I thought it was like I was okay, and it got pretty bad. We had a thing. Me and my wife got into it, and it's like I took a step back and I started looking at myself, and I was repeating the same behaviors I was doing right before I destroyed, my first marriage. So I was
Hmm.
like, something's got to change. Something has got to happen. So I dug into a book and really, I was like, I got to beat this. I got to totally get this out of my life. I got to be free from this. So I started reading it. And from that book, it opened so much stuff. And I started doing some inner work and realizing the source of it, realizing where it was coming from. But anyways, to make a long story short, I talked to my wife, and I realized, like, after being like, I realized that without that in your mind, like, life is so beautiful.
Hmm.
Like, when my mind was finally clear of all those thoughts, all those thoughts that porn puts in your head, or expectations that you expect from, your spouse or the person you're with. When you take that out, you see your wife or I saw my wife as, like, just as beautiful. Like, I loved her, and I saw her not as a piece of meat for me to satisfy myself, but I saw her as
Yeah.
an individual, as
Yeah.
a woman, and that was beautiful. And from there, I was like, I know that there's guys out there that are struggling with it, and they got to, I want to create something that helps them out. And from there, I started Man Under Construction, but I took it a little deeper, and I was, I, I had missed out on so many lessons in life about being a man and masculinity due to pornography. I was 20 plus years stuck in it, more than half my life.
Yeah.
And I missed out on a lot of those lessons that men are supposed to learn. So I'm having to learn them for the first time. And I figured, I'll create this page to talk about porn, my porn addiction, how I was able to come out of it, and also talk about the lessons I'm learning now, because porn is rampant right now. And
Hmm.
I know that I'm not the only guy that it's taken, like, a big chunk of their life, just totally consumed by it. So that's really what Man Under Construction is. I'm constantly under construction, but I want to share the lessons about the construction to other men, and hopefully help them, inspire them to come out of different situations they might find themselves in.
That's what I like the name of it, Man Under Construction, because we're always trying to get better. And I think as humans, we're always trying to get better. But then as men, are we trying to get better? And I think if we can have some place to go where there's other people who have the same wounds as we have, it's a way to get better. You mentioned a minute ago about a book that you picked up. What book was that?
Um, the book is called Fight of Your Life, The Fight of Your Life. It's a faith-based book, but that's the first one. And then after that, I read the other ones, but that was the first one that really launched me into um, where I'm at right now, launched me into wanting to create a space on Instagram for that kind of stuff. I don't recall the author right now, but that's what it's called: Fight of My Life, or Fight
Fight.
of Your Life.
Okay. Okay.
I can send. I mean, if you want to share that, or I'll send you the title of it or the link to it. But it helped me a lot.
Yeah. So you said it runs rampant. Okay, so porn's rampant, and I think with the advent of the internet, it's only made it worse. And it's so accessible, and then you see these young boys who are 12, 13 years old getting phones with access to the internet, and
Mm-hmm.
it's going to make it worse. So you see reports in the news, well, at least I've seen reports in the news where it's been boys who are exposed at 12 and 13 years to hardcore pornography. And they're going, like you mentioned a minute ago, they're going to expect the girls, and I got two daughters, and I mean, I don't want them treated like this. They're going to be expected to do certain sex acts, do certain things that they saw on a screen, and they think that's normal. So I think
Yeah.
the girls are going to end up somewhat twisted in their mind just because they're thinking, well, I got to do this if I want a boy to like me.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, do you see a problem with that? I mean, it's only going to get worse. I mean, the internet's not going away.
Do a problem with boys
It's
interacting with porn at
well,
such
obviously,
a young age?
yeah, obviously you're going to, and I mean, I do too. I agree. I think it's horrible. I don't think it's good mentally because the brain continues to develop up into the 20s.
Yeah.
And there's scientific research that shows the brain also will literally change if it
Yeah.
views pornography, and it only gets worse and worse. which
Yeah.
leads down. You're fortunate. I mean, it could have led down a really bad road.
No, yeah, and I've heard those stories, man. Those horror stories where people lose all their money because they're buying porn, and then
Mhm.
they're not satisfied with that, so they uh, go get prostitutes, and
Mhm.
it can get really bad. Yeah, thank God that I didn't veer down that path. It was still, it did some damage. Like I said, destroyed, the first marriage. I was about to destroy it, my second marriage, until I came out of it.
Do you know the details about Jeffrey Dahmer and his experience?
Jeffrey Dahmer, I know who he is.
Mhm.
Um, I'm a big true crime junkie.
Uh-huh.
So his name is very familiar, but I don't recall the details of his story.
So pretty much, he was a serial killer.
Hmm.
But what led to him, and he attributes it all back to pornography. So um, he said, I think around 12 or 13, he came across one of his uncles or his dad's, Playboy magazines, and that was his first experience. And
Yeah.
then, that was in a different time and he didn't have the internet, but he managed to continue to get his hands on more and more hardcore porn. And then eventually it turned into, he had to have the real thing. And then eventually it turned into murder. Because he wasn't getting that thrill, because you get that dopamine release. Cause I've researched some of this before we've talked.
Hmm.
And that's what happens is you get so used to one certain style, I guess, or category, I guess, of pornography.
Yeah.
And then that's not enough anymore. So you have to go further into it and get a little more extreme with it to get that dopamine release again.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a drug.
Yeah. Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, our brains are I don't know how to say it, placid. There's
Plasticity.
neuroplasticity.
Hmm.
Yeah. Uh, it has plasticity, so it can change and mold in different areas. But you're right. Like, as far as the dopamine, we when we engage in it, of course, we get that high euphoric rush, and we feel good. It's almost the same as the drug. But the thing is, the pathways to that dopamine release get worn out over time. Just the same, you build a tolerance to it.
Hmm.
So the same image or the same type of video won't do it for you anymore. You won't get that satisfying feeling anymore. So you look for something a little more aggressive, a little harder, a little darker. And by the time it's a rabbit hole, you open one door and then that one door opens to another. And it's very easy. I mean, I recall, like, I would be there engaging in this stuff. And one click leads to another click, leads to another click. Oh, hey, what's this? You look at this, and I'm like, this looks interesting. So you click on that, and by the time you know it, man, you can veer off into some really, really dark stuff, and really just horrible, horrible stuff.
I can imagine that it's it's like chasing the dragon, I guess, is like what they say with heroin. Your first high is your best high. And then after that, you're
Yeah,
constantly chasing that dragon, trying. So you pump a little bit more into that needle to put into your vein. You got to get a little bit more and a little bit more, and eventually you OD and you're dead. So
yeah.
I guess so. Cocaine, from what I read, cocaine and heroin is just as addictive. Well, I guess pornography is just as addictive as cocaine and heroin.
The dopamine release that you
Mm-hmm.
get is comparable to cocaine or heroin. It's just not looked upon that way because there's no physical damage. You don't have to insert a needle,
Mm-hmm.
snort something, and obviously with those drugs, there's something physically that causes a lot of damage. So people don't. Oh, it's not the same, but mentally, chemically in your brain, the same activity is happening, which is amazing when you think about it. It's crazy.
I think sometimes on a face to face basis, we're so vain in a lot of ways as humans that if you don't see that damage, like the needle, the tracks in your arms, the tracks between their fingers, or wherever they decide to put
Yeah.
that needle, or their bridge of their nose isn't collapsing because they've snorted so much blow, that we're so vain. Well, I don't see it, therefore it's not really that bad.
Yeah.
So, I can do it a little bit more. It's in the privacy of my own home. No one knows about it. I'm not hurting anybody. This is all about me. But yeah, you are hurting someone, because I saw a report. I guess this kind of leads into it. I saw a report on the Washington Examiner. It's more of an opinion piece, but we were talking about this earlier today, and the title is "Time to Shut Pornhub Down." I'm just going to read a little bit, just so the people listening can kind of understand what this is about. It says, in the last few months, there have been several shocking cases of sex trafficking and child rape films that were hosted on Pornhub. A 15-year-old girl who had been missing for a year was finally found after her mother was tipped off that her daughter was being featured in videos on the site. 58 such videos of her rape and sexual abuse were discovered on Pornhub. Her trafficker, who was seen in the videos raping the child, was identified using surveillance footage of him at a 7-Eleven where he was spotted with his victim. He is now facing a felony charge. Also in recent news, there was a case of 22 women who were deceived and coerced by Michael Pratt, owner of Girls Do Porn, in performing sex acts on film that were subsequently uploaded to Pornhub. These women sued Girls Do Porn and won $12.7 million lawsuit against the company. And it goes on to say there was more. After a federal indictment, Pratt and his co-conspirators produced child pornography and trafficked a minor. Pratt fled the United States for New Zealand and is currently wanted on a federal warrant. Pornhub is generating millions in advertising and membership revenue with 42 billion, that's with a B, visits and 6 million videos uploaded per year. Yet it has no system in place to verify reliability, the age, or consent of those featured in pornographic content it hosts. So I read that to say this: it does hurt others, whether we see it or not. And that's probably one of the most selfish things you can think of, I guess. I mean, you're worried about just getting yours, so to speak. Meanwhile, they got 15-year-old girls getting raped and sexually assaulted. And then there's people who, like you were saying earlier, will defend it because they don't want to get rid of it.
And that story is really sad. I was following along when you were reading, and I ran into a section that said, "These are girls. They're not women," and that's exactly right. And whether it's a woman or a girl, the act is still just as disgusting. But I mean, oh, man, it's heartbreaking. And then, can you imagine for the mother that saw?
Oh yeah,
the daughter in those videos? They got, man, that's what porn does. Porn blinds you to all that stuff. Pretty soon, it doesn't matter what age, it doesn't matter who it is, as long as you get your own. You know what I'm saying? As long as you get that high, you'll be willing to destroy whoever. Yeah. And I wanted to come back on something real quick. You said that, it doesn't hurt anybody. But the thing is, with pornography, it doesn't. It's a ravenous monster that is never satisfied. So you got to keep feeding it, and the more you get into it, the more time that you invest in it. Like, I remember, man, that if I sit here talking to you, I recall going back. It was a weekday. Going to sleep at 3 a.m. Staying up all night, secluding myself, isolating myself from my friends just to be able to do all that stuff. And you think that, it's not hurting anybody. It's just, it's just me, whatever. You are hurting people. You are hurting a brother that might need you. You know what I'm saying? You're destroying that relationship. You're destroying, if you have children, you're destroying your capacity to be the best father you can be.
Yep.
Simply because you want to consume yourself with this stuff. You're sabotaging your relationship with your wife, not even just a relationship, emotional relationship, but sexual relationship. You're destroying that because obviously your wife is not going to perform what these porn stars do. So it's just you're robbing people of the best you can be, and that's very damaging. When you think about it, that is extremely damaging. Like, let's say you're going about your business. Or we've even heard the stories that, like you said, Jeffrey Dahmer, I was exposed to pornography, his uncle's porn, Like, I bet you his uncle didn't think anything of it. He was just watching, his own magazines. But little did he know that his nephew ran into it and then became the serial killer. I'm not saying that that's the case for everyone.
Right.
That doesn't mean everyone who watches porn is going to be a serial killer.
Right.
But I'm just saying, like, you think that, it's not hurting anybody, but indeed you do destroy the people around you. Not only yourself, but you destroy the blast radius of your actions are your wife, your children, your friends. It even affects your job. It's the reality is that it does damage not yourself, but it damages people. It robs people of you.
I think you can be. I think you said it best when you said it robs you from the best that you can be. Yeah. I think that sums it up, because, and you also back that up with the examples of staying up to 3 a.m, secluding yourself, just isolation, just to look at something on the screen. And so I try to limit my kids' times on tablets and stuff, because it's not normal for a kid to stare at a screen. They should be playing with at least toys in the house, if not running around. And I think the same
interacting with
things. Exactly. And the same thing I think applies to pornography, but then sex. So sex isn't meant to be satisfied solo from a screen. That's not the way we were created. It's not the way our brains were created. It was created to be with, another person. So, and I think that does rob, spouses of, go ahead.
Oh, no. Oh, well, actually, I was just going to say, like you said, with your spouse and what sex was designed for, and how it was meant to be enjoyed, and obviously, with your spouse. And actually, when I was reading that book, The Fight of Your Life, I think it was in that one. It might have been another book, I don't recall, but and I might have shared this with you earlier. There's also a chemical in your body that's released in your body, released in your mind. I think it's called epinephrine. I'm not too sure, but that or dopamine.
It's epinephrine's adrenaline.
Yes, and that heightens the senses in your, like, it heightens the senses in your, of course, your mind, feeling, sight, hearing. It heightens all those senses. It also heightens your memory, like what you're capturing at that moment. It gets seared into your mind a lot more because of that heightened state. So if you think about it, sex was designed for you to be almost to, when you think about sex, for you to automatically think of your spouse. Like when you're enjoying it and you hit that big finale, your body releases this chemical, and your heightened state almost steers the image of your wife in your head. So when you think about sex, that first thing that comes into your mind is your wife. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's almost like sex was of course supposed to be intimate, but it was also a way to almost be addicted to your wife. Addicted to you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I see. No, I know exactly what you're saying, because I've often thought about that from just a faith standpoint. I'm not going to get off into how do you say it? Proselytizing, or how I can't say the word, but preaching, I guess, is another way to say it. But I've also I've thought about that. Like,
it's okay, man. It's all good.
When people are like, well, teenagers, they could have sex, just keep it safe and wear a condom. Well, that's not safe in a way, because there is an emotional bond that is created there. There is the first parts of the climax of the orgasm and the releasing of the epinephrine, of the dopamine. It gets, you know what I mean? Like it talks about, it does everything you just talked about. So it's made me wonder, like, from a religious standpoint, from the biblical standpoint, you're supposed to wait before, stay a virgin until you get married. And I'm not saying anything about anybody. I'm not judging anybody. I'm simply saying I can see how that people are anti-religion. People are against that. I can see from a religious standpoint how that is good, because you start to wear that down if you just jump from partner to partner, and eventually it doesn't mean anything anymore.
Mhm.
The sex, the intimacy
Yeah.
doesn't mean anything anymore. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I totally get that. Like I always, I remember. I'll speak for myself, and of course, there's some other men that can relate to this. But they're like, "Oh man, just why I don't understand why all these images keep popping in my head," and it's because of that chemical release and that heightened state that your brain like almost sears these images. It like, and I'm slowly overcoming that, and they're starting to become a blur. But once in a while, my
Yeah.
something will trigger and it'll get a memory, and it's because of all that heightened state that stuff gets seared in your mind. And that's one thing that we got to understand. Chemically, there's just so much stuff going on. And I've even had people who's like, I can't stop thinking about porn. Everything reminds me about porn because of that reason. You've been in this heightened state absorbing all these images, and the only way to overcome that is just to stop watching the images. How like over time stuff, memories start to fade a little bit, and you start thinking about other stuff. That's really the way we got to do it. We got to fill our head with new images and new stuff, good stuff, to kind of push back a lot of the stuff that we've inserted into it. I've had to do a lot of work as far as that.
Yeah. Well, you're like you said, you're under construction.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I'm saying it's very fitting, because you're one of the few. There's not a lot of men who will admit it, but you're one that admitted, like, I got a problem with this. I got to get better. And I think that kind of fits. It's perfect for what your brand is about. I think it's really cool. Because I mean, in the end, it's like a drug. I think pornography is a drug. And the problem is mentioning men. Yeah, it's a problem for men, but it's also, I'm reading it. I got this article up here from this website called Fight the New Drug. And it's actually a lot about.
Yeah, it's a good site.
Yeah, it is a really good site. So you know what it's about. But for those who don't know, it's a site that teaches about the dangers of pornography and what it can do to you as an individual.
Yeah, this one, it's not a faith-based, because there are a lot of faith-based like fighting porn organizations, but this one's kind of like neutral. It's just how to fight porn, how to without the faith part.
And I think you need to have something that's neutral, because not everybody's going to be faith-based, and I understand that.
Yeah.
And
I appreciate it, because some of the.
No, I was just going to say, because at the same time, not everybody wants to have a Bible verse, in an article.
Yeah.
We still want just try to get better and just try to defeat this crap and hurt them as much as possible. It's not going to go away, but if we can hurt them as much as possible, that's how they're going to feel it.
Yeah, it's very neutral, and I like both angles, because they help me sometimes. Like on my page, everything is through the lens of my understanding and my faith, but I don't necessarily push it. Maybe once in a while I'll show a little something about my faith, but I really try to get down to the level of the guys that I'm trying to reach. They don't want you to preach to them. They want you to know what it feels like. So that's one of the angles of my page as well. But you were going to go into this article?
All right. So from fightthenewdrug.org, this one is survey finds more than 1 in 3 women watch porn at least once a week. It says more than a third of women watch pornography at least once a week, a survey found, as reported by The Independent. By now, these numbers are a few years old, but we think they're worth paying attention to. This is underreported, but what numbers we do have are eye-opening. The research by Typeform for Marie Claire also shows how the digital age has made porn accessible. 90% of the 3,000 female respondents said they watched it online, and 2/3 said they watched it on their smartphones. I see that goes to the smartphones we're talking about with the exposure to 12 and 13-year-old boys. The survey was part of a documentary project carried out by photographer Amanda de Cadenet and the magazine Marie Claire. The photographer said she wanted to embark upon the project because the women's relationship to porn has been hugely underreported. Quote, porn is here to stay, and we have to learn to negotiate it. As sexual beings ourselves, we may or may not be viewers as partners, she said. Porn may be here to stay, but does that mean it's healthy to consume? In a survey, 31% of women said they watch porn every week, and 30% said they did so a few times a month. When asked what kind of porn they gravitated towards, they answered the following: 63% heterosexuality or heterosexual, 44% lesbian, 31% mixed bag, 28% hardcore, 26% softcore, 13% gay male, 13% not listed. Who knows what's in that not listed 13%? That could be bad. You know what I mean? Like, they're maybe too ashamed to even say what they watch. But this article goes on.
Like I said,
go ahead.
Oh no, about the not listed. Like I said, that stuff's a rabbit hole, and you can reach down in the depths of human depravity when you like one link opens another, and you can you can find yourself in some dark stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's if they're even too ashamed to say what it is, I mean that's scary, and especially for females because we never. I mean, yes, females are sexual beings, but it never really. It wouldn't cross most people's mind that a female will be addicted to it. And I'm not going to read this one because, like I said, this website itself could lead you into a rabbit hole, but in a way that could really educate you on the dangers of this stuff. But here's a related article. The title of it just says, "I'm a 17-year-old girl addicted to porn." I mean, that's 17-year-old child, boy or girl. It's bad, but you would never think about hearing a girl getting addicted to it.
The thing is, with porn, it's a coping mechanism, and as long as we just simply point out the symptoms and not address the actual issue, you're right, porn is going to continue to grow and it's here to stay. A lot of things attribute to pornography. In my case, it was abandonment, not having that masculine affirmation or guidance. I'm not sure, I don't know too much about this. I've ran into that article, but I didn't read too much into it. But, she could have, a fatherless home or abusive family. As long as we keep overlooking the core issues of what's causing all this, you're right. Porn is not going to go anywhere. It's a coping mechanism. And as we adopt it as a coping mechanism, its addictive properties take over as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that kind of leads us into another part of what brought you on here is we're talking about becoming better men. And we all cope in certain ways. What do you think is a good way to cope and lead towards healing the wounds that we have so we don't get, hooked into something bad that is bad for us, either pornography or some other type of drug?
Oh man, it could be a different number of things. Some people, meditate or take up new hobbies. The most important thing is, especially with porn, when people say, "Oh, I'm trying to quit porn," and this was my mistake early on in trying to beat this. I'm going to quit porn, so I'd go for a week and not do anything, but I wouldn't replace that time with anything constructive. So I would be, let's say I spent an hour, 2 hours a day, 21 hours throughout the week. Let's say it was 7 days a week. It was 21 hours. That's 21 hours, or not. I'm sorry, 14 hours. In a week of unproductive or just time, just not doing anything. So you got to replace that with something positive. And what I did is just started reading a lot, which has helped me provide a lot of the content that I share on the page. But it goes beyond that. It's coming face to face with the issues. It's first acknowledging the source of why you're coping or why you're searching for that. And then once you find the source to that, you got to address it. Whether if it's abandonment, you were abused, or whatever the issue may be. I know it's hard and it can be difficult. I know that especially with individuals that were abused, it's very, very difficult. And I would even suggest, even the help of a counselor to help address those issues. But that's the only way. That's the only way to overcome. You're going to have to come face to face of why you're coping, and then take action from there, and replace all that time used in pornography with productive and good stuff in your life. And like I said, I've used it to. I'm always reading. every day I try to sit down and read, whether it's through pages, traditional book, audiobook. I'm always absorbing some sort of knowledge every day. Of course, for myself, because I want to grow, but also for the page, but also to keep my mind engaged, because like they say, idle hands are tools of the devil.
Mm-hmm.
So as long as you sit there idly, you're going to relapse. Like I did. I relapsed so many times before I finally was able to overcome. Like I said, you got to go to the source and start from there. That's where the journey starts to overcome it. And it doesn't even have to be porn addiction. It could be alcohol, like with any kind of vice. It's a coping mechanism. You got to go to the source. You have to go, and it's painful. It's uncomfortable. We don't like to do it. We don't like self-reflection, but we got to do it. We got to do it to be better men.
Yeah, exactly. And men don't want to be vulnerable. We're supposed to be the strong ones, that stand up to anything. Nothing makes us fall. While that should be our goal, the truth is we're still human at the end of the day, and we're still vulnerable to falling, and to having bad things happen. So I think withholding some of your vulnerable stuff, you end up injuring yourself in the end. I mean, if it's bad at first, but it'll get better in the long run, take your beating, just take the hits as they come, and then maybe you can heal up in the long run.
Yeah, definitely. Be that man that our family needs. And that's one of my motivations. I know my wife needs a solid man. My daughter needs a solid father, and I got to put in the work to be able to do those things.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And how can you be either of those things if your main goal for the day is to see how many women you can look at on a phone, doing some sex act. And it's hard as a guy to admit, yeah, I got a problem. I got an issue. It's one thing to say it to yourself and try and work on your own. It's another to realize I can't do this by myself and then go seek help.
Yeah, that's what we got to do it. We got it. I've had to do it. And I'll share this in regards to what we're talking about. I've had messages or DMs, people shoot me DMs. I've been struggling with this. I've been struggling with porn. I can't overcome it. And I'd say about half want to and take the advice I give them. And I even direct them, you gotta absorb this knowledge, man. You gotta get yourself and do some research, learn. Because unfortunately, I can't DM everything to you. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah.
So, but like I said, half of the people they want to, but they don't want to. Like they'll ask, they'll like, oh, I want to overcome. I tell them, well, you got to do this. I don't know. I don't know how to do that. I'm not sure if I can do that. Well, then you don't really want to overcome.
Well, so there might be some people who are wondering. Well, don't obviously mention any names, but maybe have an example. Yeah. Maybe they can learn. Yeah, like maybe someone came to you and said, hey, I have this certain problem, and you offer this solution, but then they're kind of like, yeah. Could you get a little more specific about that?
Well, first thing I ask is, do you know why you watch porn? And most of the time, they don't have an answer for that. Mm-hmm. Like, that's why do you watch it? Well, because I like it. Well, why do you like it? Because I'm just, they don't necessarily actually, they don't respond after that, but I'm assuming like, well, girls and guys getting it on, but yeah, it's like, well, what do you like about it? What is it that you're watching that you enjoy about it? What does it do for you? Like the father was over dominating. That's one scenario, when you go back, or the mother was overbearing, that the son built up this resentment toward the woman, and he was no longer going to let a woman dominate him anymore. So he releases that aspect of it through watching pornography that's very aggressive on the woman, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
So I always start off from there. And that's not always the case. Some people are like, oh, I'm just lonely. And well, then why are you lonely? There's got to be something further in that you got to be able to work out. And unfortunately, people don't want to do that inner work. There's of course, it doesn't end there. Like, okay, my father abandoned me. And like in my case, I was saying, I really didn't have my father there, and I needed masculine affirmation and guidance. So in my case, I would watch pornography that affirmed the man. So it wasn't just like, oh, okay, I figured this out. Now you got to do the work of rewiring your brain, filling out, doing away with the porn, filling it in with good stuff. Read, focus your thoughts, meditate, and see, it doesn't end there. It's a process. Like me, like I said, I was stuck in it for 20 years, and to expect to overcome it overnight, that's just unrealistic.
Yeah.
So it's been a journey for me, process. Like I said, I don't engage in it anymore. I don't watch it. Once in a while, it tries to knock at my door. It reminds me, like, hey, when you feel down and out. And actually, I did a little live session on Instagram, and I talked about this. Sometimes, like for me, I would cope with it a lot when I was down. I was kind of beat down by life. And this past weekend, I was a little, defeated. Some stuff happened. I was like, oh man, it totally sucks. But my mind remembered what I would use to feel better at that time. I was like, oh man, I can't believe, like, my mind was working against me, but
yeah,
I had to dig into some of the tools that I've learned and read, like, man, I got to snap out of this. And if not, I will fall into, so it's a daily battle. It's a daily battle. It's daily, sharpening the sword. You got to stay sharp on your tools, remain vigilant. I think a lot of things is people, when they ask, oh, I'm tired of watching porn. They want that quick fix. They want that answer. Okay, do this, boom, no more porn. And unfortunately, it doesn't work that way, man. It's a process. You got to work through it. You got to find the source. You got to retrain your brain, retrain your thoughts. And a lot of people aren't willing to do the work.
Yeah, because like we said earlier, it's a drug. You can't break a drug habit in a matter of a day. That's just impossible. You can't break heroin.
You got to deal with.
Yeah. You can't break a heroin habit.
Sometimes you're going to relapse.
Yeah, there's going to be times. Because you hear about the drug addicts, and that's what it all comes down to. I think it's just not. It's an internal drug. It's not. It's a drug with more internal scars than external, like we see with heroin.
Yeah, and like I said, it's people just don't want to do the process, and that's usually what I get. I ask them, like, why do you watch? And most of the time, I don't get a response.
Yeah,
I mean, like I said, half of the time. The other time, they are engaged and they do want to, like, man, I want to overcome this, and I direct them to certain resource materials that they got to dig in and really absorb for themselves. Because unfortunately, I can't be there for them, right by their side and telling them, which is kind of the downside of what I'm trying to do. But I'm doing the best I can in directing people and trying to let them know that you can on this. It is possible. It is possible to look at women respectfully and not to expect these ridiculous things on the person you end up with. So I'm trying my best. I'm doing what I can and sharing those lessons out on my page.
Yeah, I think you're doing a good job at it too. I think your message is clear. It's a good message. It's one that there's probably so many more men that you don't even realize that need your message than will ever contact you.
I hope so, man. The page does continue to grow, and I'm thankful for that. And it reassures me that there's a need for it. There's a space inside each and every man that is crying out for for help.
Mm-hmm.
And I never thought I'd get to where I'm at right now. Obviously, as I continue to grow, I'll say that again. But when I first started, I was like, man, will I even get like 1,000 followers or people to hear what I'm have to say? So
it's really good. I don't even know. I think you started following the Toxic Man page first, and I want to say it certainly wasn't. I think you're around 7,300 now.
Yeah, I think so. I haven't checked.
Because whenever someone I'm just get nosy and I look at their page and see what I think yours was around like it's like four. It's in the 4,000s, I want to say, and that was I can't remember when he started following me at this point, but it's been several months. But I mean, it's been growing exponentially. And I was looking the other day and it kind of surprised, like, dang, I was like, he's almost at 7,300. I was like, good for him. I think I texted you about it or something like that.
Oh yeah. My wife is very supportive about that, and she also texted me, it's like, hey, you're at 7,000. I was like, oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, no, that's
good.
good.
Cool.
It's showing growth, but it's showing that you're giving guys that possibly have wounds that they need healed. You could be an outlet for them, and they're coming to they're looking for something.
And the page, it's not, of course, that was the launching point, you know, my breaking the porn addiction, but it launches into so much stuff now because, like I said, now I'm having to learn these new lessons. So I'm digging deeper into myself and like, man, you know, why was I insecure in this area, or why was I feeling a certain way? And I dig into that, and I read about it, and I learn about it, and I try to apply it in my life. And as I apply it, of course, I share it in a post. I chat back and forth with a group of guys who also post similar content. They're like, oh, do you schedule your posts? What do you do? And they're like, oh, I schedule them a week in advance, whatever. And I'm like, I do them live. I pick out a photo, edit it, create it, and post it live. It takes a little bit, 30 minutes or whatever. But I end up doing it right then and there. So they were a little surprised about that, but that's how it works here at the Man Under Construction. We're live, spontaneous.
I think that's probably the best way.
It's a thought that comes to mind.
Yep.
Like I'll read something right then and there.
Yeah.
Or the best I'll do is highlight something that I read the night before, and then I structure it, put it together in the morning, or the afternoon, whenever I'm going to share something.
Yeah, that's kind of the way I do it. Just whenever I'm reading it. Yeah, I'd say it's the same thing. And sometimes it's hard to even get
inspired.
Yeah, it's hard to sometimes even get through a paragraph in a book because I'll read a sentence. I'm like, oh, that's a thought. And I'll start doing one. And I'll put my phone down. I'll start reading again. A couple sentences later, I'm like, oh, there's another good point. And I'll have several saved on my phone, but it takes me forever to read a paragraph in a book because I'm doing it the same method as you do. Because I think it's the freshest and it's the most genuine information you can put out there if it's right then and there. You know what I mean? Like that's what's in your head, on your heart. Let's get it out there now.
Yeah. No, yeah, definitely. And I mean, I do feel that approach really brings through all of them in a span of a couple of hours. I think it would be really hard as far as what I'm doing. I think it would be hard to pour that amount of emotion in 3 hours, creating all these posts that target different things. Because usually my posts talk about, like, I'll talk about, you know, being an awesome father, being a good man. And then the next post would be like, you know, in order to be that good man, you got to really dig deep. So they veer off into different topics. And I think that for me, the best way is to do it right then and there as I'm thinking about it, how I'm feeling at the moment. So that's really helped me out quite a bit as far as posting different content. Yeah,
absolutely. I agree with that. So I think right now we're going to move on to the Feminist Freakout Award.
Feminist Freakout Award. The Feminist Freakout Award.
Yeah. So we get these feminists that freak out, and these sound effects are brought by Shane over at Studio_933. I think you're familiar with Shane.
Yes. He put together an intro for me, and it's epic. It's rocking. I like it. So good work. and we appreciate him over there.
So this one is from psychologytoday.com. It's feminists think sexiest men are sexier than woke men. Excuse me. Yes. Feminists think sexist men are sexier than woke men. So you've heard the term woke, right?
Yeah. Woke.
Okay. For those who don't know, if you're woke, you're pretty much a leftist, I guess you could say. You're someone who believes in feminism, I think the radical feminism.
I think it's just another social justice.
There you go.
Is woke.
Yeah,
I think that's probably the easiest way to say it. So extreme social justice. Yeah. You got a little tongue tied there.
They're and I tend to sometimes overthink things and overanalyze. So yeah, you said it simply and probably the best way. In the first line, I think we could probably just discuss that, but it says women like bad boys.
Women like bad boys. Yes, that's true. Certain women like bad boys, and And as far as the issue goes, feminists think sexist men are sexier than woke men. And I guess you got to differentiate what's a sexist man and a woke man. What's the difference between a woke man and a sexist man?
A woke man's going to be one who just bows down to whatever the radical feminists want. If she wants him to wear one of those pink vagina hats and prance around Washington, D.C., on January 21st every year, then that's what he's going to do, because he is considered woke. He is considered one that is on the side of radical feminism.
You can skip me on the vagina hats.
Are you sure?
I'm pretty positive. I got a great set of hair, and there's no way I want to put that kind of hat on.
All right. Well, I mean, I was going to send one off to the mail, but if that's what you want to be about it, you want to be woke. That's your problem, not mine.
You want? Yeah. You better be careful. You're gonna get triggered.
I'm triggered now.
But yeah, we got to make the differentiate a sexist man and a woke man. But of course, like you said, woke being passive. A passive guy, usually, like you said, bowing down to whatever people pleaser. I guess you could call it that. Someone that just lives to please people.
Mm-hmm.
And a sexist man. Of course, there's sexist in a bad term, but I didn't read too much into the article as far as what they're thinking. But I'm thinking sexist men in the way that. The way of traditional masculinity, tough, rugged, that would be considered sexist for men to exercise that part in themselves, or to I guess also like when they flirt with a woman, as an aggressor, whereas taking the lead, that would be considered, sexist. But that's also that falls under traditional masculinity, pursuing the woman.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think women like to be pursued. They don't want to be the pursuer necessarily. It says here that...
But the thing is that we run into... Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Say what you're going to say.
No, well, because this leads to another door. You said feminists think that sexist men are sexier. So the thing is, do the sexist men want to date feminists?
I can't see why.
If we're comparing like sexist men leaning toward the rugged, masculine, brooding kind of guy, why would they want to date a feminist woman? I think this article was written just to pat each other on the back. It doesn't make any sense.
Mm-mm.
Well,
no.
They may think that they're. The sexist men are sexier, but do they really want a sexist man in their life? Do they want a traditional man in their life? So I really don't think that they put a lot of stock into this article.
Yeah, they do. These articles, I'll read Psychology Today a good bit because it's just interesting. That was actually my favorite subject in school. It's a lot of liberal left-leaning stuff in it, but it's just interesting to see how some of these people think.
I guess I need to see what they define as sexist. Because as a masculine man, proud of my masculinity, there's no way I want to date it. Why would I waste time and energy dating a feminist?
Yeah, right. Just to get yelled at and told that you're not woke and that you are too alpha, that,
to stop mansplaining.
Yeah, stop manspreading, mansplaining. It's gotten so ridiculous. They don't even want to call manhole covers in the road anymore. There was a whole article about that.
People hold covers?
Something, I don't know. It just...
It sounds like Justin Trudeau out there. People kind.
Gosh, dude, I can't stand that idiot. He gets on my nerves. And he's such a hypocrite, too. Such a hypocrite. That's what really just irritates me about it. I'm trying
I shouldn't have said that. I triggered you.
You got me going on that one. You're going to put me on a platform. and our soapbox rather, and I'm just gonna I'm gonna go off on Justin Trudeau. Guys, it makes me so mad. He's got womanly features too. You ever how soft his face is? I bet he uses lotion.
Yeah.
Someone needs to slap
The
him.
homeboy needs he needs a little peach for like some 5 o'clock shadow and
Yeah.
He needs to be worn by the elements. He looks too clean.
How can you live in Canada and be that soft looking? Have you seen like how rough it is up there and the weather is terrible and you look soft like that? Oh,
He lives in an ivory tower.
No, he does. He does live in an ivory tower. And you got me. You got me on that one. You got me.
All right, man. We got to switch. We got to switch gears, my man.
Yeah,
we got to switch gears.
I think there'll be people to agree with me though. So it looks like they're saying in this that many of these concepts and dynamics themselves have been called sexist and misogynistic, reflecting underlying beliefs that women, quote, owe men sex, and the, quote, incel community, a group of online males who complain bitterly, violently, and angrily about being, quote, involuntarily celibates. That's new to me. I didn't even know what that meant.
Yeah, I recently came across that term.
That's weird.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And there's actually these groups of people that sit there and complain that women don't want to go out with them, and the involuntary celibates because women don't want to be with them. Like, dude, maybe if you stop complaining on your computer, get yourself to the gym, work out a little bit, put the PlayStation down, get yourself a job, maybe work on your communication skills, your social skills, do a little inner work. You might have a solid shot at pursuing. Yeah.
There's some crazy ideas. Yeah, and it looks like they attack women for choosing, quote, alpha males rather than softer, kinder men like themselves. That's because women don't want beta males. I mean, when it comes down to it, the majority of them don't. They rather have an alpha male because that's their protection. And they know that. They know that the guy's going to be there to protect them. And if you're going to sit there and be, I guess, an incel, we'll just go and use that term because apparently it's a thing. If you're going to be one of those, you need to look inside yourself and realize that you're causing the issues. They're self-imposed issues.
Mm-hmm. But is that what they're saying sexist men are, or what are they attributing sexist to?
So let's see. Let me go back a little bit. All right, so I'll just read the first paragraph. It says, quote, women like bad boys, at least that's the story. And there's a lot of writing and anecdotal experience to back that up. Men frequently complain about being, quote, friend-zoned. The idea that men who are respectful toward their female interests get placed in the role of friend rather than potential boyfriend. The, quote, pickup artist community has embraced this concept, teaching men how to behave in assertive, dominant ways that are allegedly more, quote, successful with women. Many of these concepts and dynamics themselves have been called sexist and misogynistic. So if you're a quote pickup artist, if you aren't the nice friend zone guy and you want to meet women and go on dates with them, then you're sexist. It says many of these concepts and dynamics.
And feminists, and feminists want or think sexist in that term. Men are sexier than friend zoned men.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, because women don't want friends; they want dates. They want to go out with somebody,
right? They want someone who's interested in them, not just
or someone that has the potential of being to be with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. So
I could understand that from a feminist perspective, but the thing is, like, what I find strange is a feminist would want something like that. That it's like you're going to run into some really harsh fights if you find, like, if a feminist is usually strong-willed and then you get an alpha dude, that's not going to go over too well.
No, that's not going to. You're going to have a major headbutting. I mean, that's like in military and law enforcement. You put a bunch of alpha males together, they're going to be fights. There's going to be arguments, and one's going to think that the other one's stupid because his idea is not as good in his eyes. But then there's going to be a whole bunch. Yeah, you put alphas together, there's going to be issues.
But also, the title of the article is just not like it has no merit because it just says feminists think sexist men are sexier. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to date them. They just think they're sexier.
Right. I'm surprised they didn't use feel instead of think, because on the left, everything's about feelings, not necessarily thought.
Yeah. So I'm not buying. They might feel more attracted to them, and of course, there's a certain element of attraction towards the bad boy. And the thing is, when you break down a feminist, a lot of them have been wounded they have a father wound.
Yeah.
So they're seeking, and I think, well, I'll stop there because we're starting to dig a little deeper than necessary on such a puff piece like this.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, we still can eventually do another podcast, I'm sure, and we'll have plenty of material. Just probably in this one article alone could give us 2 or 3 podcasts. Yeah. So we will move on from the feminist freak out, and if I hear correctly, I think we have the Toxic Man Award inbound. All right. So this one is from the Good News Network, and it's titled "Airman Who Was Traveling to Receive a Heroism Award Nonchalantly Saves a Choking Baby on the Way." And this one says, quote, "The real-life Superman has pulled off every courageous stunt in the books. He has rescued people from a burning car, served on the president's security team, and he was one of the divers who saved the team of the Thai soccer players last year. Not only that, he had been on his way to receive a medal for his heroism earlier this month when he saved a choking baby on an airplane. U.S. Air Force Technical Sergeant Kenneth O'Brien is always humble about his acts of heroism, but he was only recognized for his valor after he was selected as one of 12 other airmen who were named on the 2019 Outstanding Airman Award of the Year."
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Like, to hear that kind of stuff is awesome.
Yeah. O'Brien had been on an airplane with his family from Okinawa to Dallas to receive the award when he noticed that a 1-year-old child had started to choke. After another passenger failed to clear the blockage from the baby's throat, O'Brien quickly stepped in to perform CPR and back thrust. 1 minute later, the baby regained consciousness. O'Brien, who returned to his seat and continued to check on the child throughout the flight, said, "I'm thankful that the child is okay and that I was able to help when the family needed support. I happened to be in the right place at the right time." Apparently this is my note. Apparently that's his thing, to be in the right place at the right time, because he's just saving people left and right. Like you and I have to change our underwear every morning.
So, or maybe he's just like awareness, you know what I'm saying? Situational awareness. Maybe. Just, and I can see that, he's part of the military. He's an airman. And, or was he a pilot? No, airman.
Airman, yeah.
Yeah, like a lot of people would just shy away from that stuff, but instead of shying away, because there's always stuff constantly going on, and it's it takes a special kind of man to constantly stand up to that. Mm-hmm. That's when the situation arises, to stand up and be that hero that the situation calls for. So yeah, that's awesome, man.
And that's part of being a man, or just being under our true masculinity. You're a protector, you're a rescuer. You see danger, you try to help others avoid it. If there is danger, you face it head on. If somebody is in danger, you go help them. It's part of who we are. I think that's why I would give him the Toxic Man Award here, because he sums it all up with, he's pulling people out of burning cars. He's on security teams. He's spelunking down into deep caves to get kids out that are trapped, down in Thailand. Mm-hmm. And then he's, realizing that someone couldn't help save a baby. So he jumps in and he performs CPR and dislodges something that was lodged in that child's throat and saves them. So for that, he definitely gets the Toxic Man Award on this podcast.
He is one toxic man indeed.
Absolutely. So I guess we can, at that point, we can wrap it up. Like to just mention a couple things. We got some get some shout outs I always do for our branding company is Dip Branding. You can find them at www.dipbranding123.com. Danny, if you're listening, I'm going to get you about my backdrop. The branding guy, it's my fault. I haven't got the backdrop yet behind me. Because now you can, as you can see, I got Care Bears and all kinds of stuff in the kids' playroom.
It's all right, my man. Yeah. I don't got a backdrop either.
So we're working on that. But anyway, he was supposed to work on some stuff today for me, and then he realized at about 6:30, he texted me apologizing, and I told him I wasn't going to let this down. I also want to give a shout out to Will Corbin over at Iron Covenant Gym in Anderson. You can find him on Instagram at Iron Covenant SC. He's a vet, knows his stuff. He knows his way around a gym. Will's a funny dude. Like him, he's a good guy. And then we talked about Shane as well. And I just want to give another shout out to our sponsor at Toxic Masculinity Whiskey. Find them at Firebrand Spirits on Instagram. I want to thank, obviously, Michael from Man Under Construction for his time.
Yes, sir.
And hopefully we'll have some more podcasts in the future. I do want to also say that there will be, okay, I'm not going to play the game anymore because I think you mentioned it, but we're putting together a podcast for the summertime. We want to do a release on that.
Mm-hmm.
We're looking at it's going to be about masculinity.
Summertime release.
Yeah, it's going to be about masculinity and kind of what plagues us, what has killed us as men. I think taking out the rugged part of who we are. Is that kind of a good summary or?
Well, the title is going to be the Death of Man podcast. Mm-hmm. And yeah, we're going to talk about different things of why, what parts of us have died, societal, forces that have pushed that part of us out, and even just emotional or our own past that have suppressed that part of us and killed us off as the men we are called to be. So that's definitely something that, John and I are working together on, and I'm excited about it. I'm excited about it to be able to, put our concepts together and come out and push out some good content and just some great conversations, talking about stuff that people refuse to talk about. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm excited about it. I think it's going to be really fun once we really get it rolling and stuff. But yeah, that'll be the Death of Man podcast. So, again, I want to say thank you, and look forward to talking again soon. And
of course, it was an honor. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely. And anyway, well, everybody, thank you for listening to this podcast again. You can find our website is www.thetoxicman.net, and obviously our Instagram is @thetoxicman_, and our Facebook is thetoxicman1, and our YouTube is the Toxic Man as well. And Michael, if you would just tell everybody who's listening how they can follow you and get a hold of you.
The best way would be on Instagram, and it's Man Under Construction, underscores after Man Under and Construction. The best way to get me is on there. You can shoot me a DM, and I'm pretty responsive to that. My community, or the community I've created, is not that large, so I'm usually pretty interactive with the people who message. You can find me on there, and then on the podcast, just the Man Under Construction podcast, and that's on the bigger platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and a few Google Podcasts, a few others, and you can find it on there, whichever platform you prefer. Just search the Man Under Construction podcast.
Awesome. All right, great. All right, again, I appreciate it, and until next time, stay toxic, guys.